really tricked me into thinking I was going to get a Storm episode. The final season of What If just finished, and I was a little bit behind because I've been traveling, so I'm just going to rapid fire all of my thoughts. Spoilers if you aren't up to date with What If. Episode 6 was my favorite of the final 3. I'm a sucker for a good West. I thought that Shang-Chi and Hawkeye was a well thought out combination, especially with the added layer of them searching for Chinese immigrants. Because I believe Haley Steinfeld is half Filipino. I'm not trying to say that all Asians are the same. I'm just saying that it's very cool that he is teaming up with an Asian woman to search for Chinese immigrants. Speaking of which, I knew this twist was coming with his sister being the hood. I just couldn't get with her motivations and the tactics that she decided to use. She was mentally oppressing and imprisoning her own people. I feel like that just goes against the core of her character. I know the hood took over her. Even a distorted view of her goals shouldn't lead her to this. That being said, I thought it was cute. I enjoyed it. It was a nice Western story. And I'm glad that season 3 took the opportunity to highlight characters that I felt like were forgotten. And I did not like the finale. I felt like they really played in my face with this Storm episode. Of all of the people that were included in that final A-Force type team, Storm was the only one without an origin story. I felt like she was a highlighted part of the marketing, and they used her name to lure us all in, and they didn't even give her character due justice. And it's something that I feel like has happened with the depiction of Storm in cartoons and live action, where she's sidelined or her power is slightly diminished. In X-Men 97, we finally got to see Storm at her full potential, and for 5 of those episodes, she was out of commission. The new X-Men movies, she was making ice for Cyclops, and now in this, we don't even get a backstory for her. Fails when she tries to use that shard, and honestly, I felt like the stuff that we saw Ultron do, she could have done. I feel like Storm is consistently relegated to be the person who gives a pep talk to her white counterpart. Speaking of which, listen, the Peggy Carter hate train is definitely rooted in misogyny. I want to acknowledge that before I say I groaned when I saw her on screen. I think a big reason for that is that What If is at its worst when it tries to continue with one consistent storyline. It's at its best when it's treated like an anthology series. And I'm cool with some of the characters showing up in some of the other storylines. I think that's fine. Birdie could have showed up in the Storm Thor episode. It was also really hard for me to get behind the Watcher's fight because for all intents and purposes, he was in the wrong. I did laugh out loud when he tried to taunt his boys. And he was like, oh, you boys just can watch, right? And they were like, nah, we can deliver this ass whooping if it interferes with our work. Also, the Watcher giving all of these women the power, I thought was pretty wild. I don't know, maybe that's just me. What about this abomination up here said, let me bestow her the power of a god? Sorry, I called Birdie an abomination, but she is. I love her character. I think she's cool. She's an abomination. That has to be said. I saw a lot of Mary Sue comments going around when it came to Captain Carter. And once again, that is definitely rooted in misogyny. But I am curious as to why Marvel loves Peggy Carter as a character so much. They had her throwing hands with the Scarlet Witch, and she's fighting gods. It was crazy to me. Because once again, I was watching this thinking this should be Storm's story. This should be something that Storm was doing. She's magic and she has the power. But they just had to get Peggy Carter off one more time. Even, I forgot her name, the original character that they made who was native, she would have been a great person as well. I need to know, what is it about Peggy that makes them want to highlight her so much? Because Quiet as Kept, of all of the characters they introduced, her story was the least compelling to me. Okay, she took the serum instead of Steve Rogers. But I don't know, maybe I was just salty because they didn't give me what I wanted with Storm. Maybe I'm just a little bit worried because the writer of What If is the new showrunner for X-Men 97. And just what I've seen with Shang-Chi, how they address systematic oppression, and then just seeing how Storm was sidelined once again, it put a little worry in my heart, and I think it affected the way that I watched the final 3 episodes or 2 episodes. It wasn't the worst thing I've ever seen. I wasn't underwhelmed. I wasn't overwhelmed. I was just kind of whelmed. I'm gonna go ahead and give these last 3 episodes and the season 3 out of 5 Frankie Flames. There was so much potential here.